The reason most American financial advice tells you to spend less and save more is that spending less and saving more is correct. And the reason most people who know this still feel financially stuck is that knowing what to do and having a relationship with money that makes doing it feel natural are completely different things. The specific thing that Japanese financial culture has that American financial culture mostly does not is not a set of habits. It is a philosophy that makes the habits feel like the obvious way to live, rather than like discipline and sacrifice. There are 6 specific practices that come from that philosophy, and the 6th one is the philosophy itself. And once you understand it, the other 5 stop being habits you are trying to remember and start being things you just do. And before we get into the habits, there is one framing worth establishing. The Japanese concept of ma, the word for negative space or pause, is present in every practice below, not as a topic itself, but as the underlying principle. In American financial culture, the default is motion, consumption as the response to every available moment of rest. And Japanese financial philosophy builds ma into the financial life. The pause before the purchase, the space between the desire and the action. And the 6 habits below are 6 specific ways that pause is practiced.
Habit 1. Kakeibo, the handwritten monthly financial journal. Most people track spending digitally, if they track it at all. And the specific problem with digital tracking is the same problem with digital payments. It removes the physical friction that makes financial decisions feel real. Swiping a card does not feel like spending money. It feels like presenting a credential. And tracking spending in an app does not feel like confronting a decision. It feels like observing data. Kakeibo is the Japanese practice of writing financial records by hand. Income, expenses, savings, and a reflection on whether the month went as intended. And the mechanism behind it is the physical act of writing, which activates a different cognitive process than typing or tapping. Writing by hand forces slower engagement with each number. Each figure written is a figure encountered rather than a figure passed. And the Kakeibo practice includes 4 questions asked at the start of each month. How much money do I have? How much do I want to save? How much am I spending? How can I improve? And 4 questions at the end of each month. How much did I spend? Did I meet my savings goal? Where did I waste money? How can I do better next month? The practice takes 10 minutes per month, and the friction it introduces into the awareness of financial flow is the specific mechanism that changes spending behavior without changing spending rules.
Habit 2. Mottainai, the philosophy of no waste. There is no direct translation of mottainai into English, and the absence of a direct translation is itself informative. Mottainai expresses regret over waste, not guilt about spending, but the specific feeling of having allowed something valuable to go unused before its potential was exhausted. And the reason American culture lacks a direct equivalent for this word is that American consumer culture is not organized around the full use of what is owned. It is organized around the acquisition of the next thing. Mottainai in practice means completing what you have before acquiring more, eating food before it expires, wearing clothing until it genuinely needs replacing, using the thing in the drawer before buying its equivalent. And the financial consequence of applying mottainai consistently is the systematic reduction of the replacement spending category, not through discipline against desire, but through the genuine satisfaction of having used something fully before it was released. The specific application is a regular review of owned items against the mottainai question. Has this given everything it can give? And the answer, more frequently than most people realize, is not yet.
Habit 3. The cash envelope system taken seriously. The research on cash versus card spending is one of the most consistent findings in behavioral economics, and it has been widely reported. And most people who have heard of it continue using cards because the convenience outweighs the abstract awareness that cash creates more deliberate spending. And the Japanese version of this practice is not the American version because the relationship with cash in Japan is different at the cultural level. Cash is still the primary payment method in Japan, and the physicality of the transaction is preserved in a way that card-based economies have eliminated. The specific mechanism is the pain of paying,
The physical sensation of handing over money that neuroimaging studies have shown activates the insula, a region associated with negative emotion, in a way that card payment does not. The Japanese cash envelope practice divides monthly spending into physical envelopes by category before the month begins. When the envelope is empty, the category is closed. And the power of this practice is not willpower, it is architecture. The decision about how much to spend in each category is made once at a moment of calm, rather than made repeatedly at moments of desire. And architecture always outperforms willpower over time. And if the Kakebo practice and the Motonai philosophy just shifted something in how you were thinking about the relationship between money and daily attention, the like button is right there. It means this video keeps reaching people who needed the philosophy, not just the practices.
Habit 4. Hara Hachi Bu. 80% full applied to consumption. Hara Hachi Bu is the Japanese practice of eating only until you are 80% full, associated with longevity research in Okinawa. And its application to money is not a metaphor the Japanese explicitly name, but a philosophical extension that the framing naturally produces. And the specific extension is this. The drive to consume until fully satisfied is the same drive in both eating and spending. And the practice of stopping before full satisfaction in one domain creates the cognitive framework for stopping before full satisfaction in the other. Applied to spending, Hara Hachi Bu is the practice of buying the version of something that covers 80% of what you want, rather than the version that covers 100%. The car that is very good, rather than perfect. The kitchen that functions excellently, rather than featuring every available upgrade. The phone that does everything needed, rather than everything possible. And the financial consequence of systematically choosing 80% solutions is the accumulation of the 20% premium that was not spent across every category, across every year, which compounds into the savings gap that most people cannot explain because they did not make any obviously bad purchase decisions. They consistently made the 100% solution choice.
Habit 5. Chocho. Tracking every single yen. There is a level of financial awareness that most Americans consider excessive, tracking every purchase, regardless of size. And the reason it feels excessive is that the American financial framework treats small purchases as not worth the attention. And that treatment is the specific mechanism that allows small purchases to accumulate into the largest spending category most people cannot name. Chocho is the Japanese practice of recording every purchase, not for the purpose of strict budgeting, but for the purpose of awareness. And the specific mechanism is the same as Kakebo at the transaction level. Each purchase written creates a brief encounter with the decision made. And the pattern that emerges from a month of Chocho is almost always surprising to people who believed they had a reasonable sense of where their money was going. The coffee, the app, the convenience item, not because any individual purchase was wrong, but because the pattern reveals the habit that was invisible because no single instance was significant. And pattern awareness is what changes behavior, where rule following rarely does.
Habit 6. The philosophy that explains all 5. Here is what all 5 practices above have in common. And once you understand it, the practices stop being Japanese habits you are trying to adopt and start being the natural expressions of a different starting point than the one American consumer culture provided you with. Every habit above is a practice of ma, the pause, the space between stimulus and response, between desire and purchase, between income and spending, between problem and solution. The Kakebo Journal creates ma between the financial month and the financial record. The Motonai philosophy creates ma between the owned thing and its replacement. The cash envelope creates ma between the budget decision and the spending decision. The Nemawashi process creates ma between the desire for a major purchase and the commitment. And the reason these practices feel like discipline to Americans is that American consumer culture has systematically removed ma from every financial transaction. The one-click purchase, the saved card, the frictionless payment, the immediate delivery, all of these are the deliberate elimination of the pause that makes a different decision possible. I make these videos because I find it genuinely unreasonable that the most transferable insight from Japanese financial culture is the philosophical starting point, and most content about Japanese money habits never explains it. Subscribe so I can keep being unreasonable about that on your behalf. The video on your screen right now might be more helpful for you, so click and watch.